I don't know, man. I just got the world championship for you. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, as always. So you guys do know we have the world championship going on, and you might not know, but you know now. We got the world championship rolling. So I got Gukesh Dommaraju versus Ding Liren, the current world champion going on. So all of my people coming from the Philippines, as always, I'll say Merbing Salamat. Anybody who is coming from China, I will say Shishya. Anybody who is coming from India, who speaks Tamil, I will say Nandri. Anybody who speaks Telugu, I will say Danyavadalu. But if you guys are ready to go, this is game number 3. Let's take a look, see what we got for this game, son. All right, so we got the move D4, the rarest move in all of chess. Now I'm playing with y'all. Y'all know I'm messing with y'all. We got knight F6, so we do start off with an Indian game. We got knight F3, we got D5, we got C4, and then we do have E6, and we got the Queen's Gambit declined. We don't want none of the Queen's Gambits. We got pawn taking D5, pawn taking D5, and then we do see knight to C3. And one thing you probably noticed is when you did push C4, you did create a little pocket for this knight to come behind. But we do have pawn takes, like I said. We got the move C6, making sure everything is solid on D5. Queen goes to C2. We got the move G6. And then we have H3, which is rare waters. But one of the things I did want to mention about this move, Queen to C2, is what we really want to do, you guys hear me say this all the time, is we are trying to push the move E4. So after the move G6, it might seem like, hey man, I can push E4 now, right? Absolutely not, because your king is really stuck in the center of the board. So if we did see the move E4 here, you would be looking at pawn takes and then knight takes and then queen to E7. And the pressure against your king is massive. And because of this move G6, we do have the possibility of going bishop to G7. So queen to E7 is not blocking your bishop at all like it does most of the time. So yeah, you are in kind of like a little bit of a pickle here. So you don't want to get into that. You got to be very careful and make sure that you are not opening things up in front of your own king. So like I said, we did see H3, the rare water move. We got bishop to F5, trying to inconvenience the queen, but also trying to make sure we clamp down on E4. Queen goes to B3. We got queen over to B6. We got the move G4. We got queen taking B3, pawn taking up B3. And it was actually very important that you do take the queen at that particular point. Because if, let's say, the bishop retreats somewhere, you allow the queen to go back. There really isn't a whole lot now at that point that's preventing the move E4. So it's all very strategic. We do see bishop going to C2. And this is a very common idea like in the Slav. Just trying to, you know, get at this double pawn here. It's not really... There's not really a great way for white to defend it, so it's kind of like a sitting duck pawn. And we do see bishop to F4 in the game. But there is actually something that I wanted to show you guys here. There's a nice little trick in the position. It is to go the move knight to A4. And it is absolutely, in this specific position, it's not the best move, but just trying to like show you guys the idea. It might kind of seem like you're hanging a pawn. You're like, man, bishop takes B3. And I just get a pawn, right? Well, absolutely not. After you see bishop taking B3, you would be looking at knight to B6, and it does say everything is dead even, but black now has to play down a rook because this pawn is now pinned because of the open file. And I actually came across this in a over the board game, my last tournament, and the guy almost went for it, but then he was like, wait, that's not a free pawn? Absolutely not, it wasn't. But it would have been nice if he played it, man. But anyways, we do see bishop F4. We got the move H5. We got rook over to G1. Pawn takes G4. Pawn takes G4. We do see knight B to D7. And this is the novelty of the game. We have never seen this position in all of human history with chess. And we do see knight down to D2. Now, what you guys might have noticed coming back here is it does seem like you could have played knight to D2 first. But you would have probably been looking at bishop to H6, removing that defender, and then just grabbing this pawn for free. Also, you wouldn't be having a lot of, support on D4. So your whole central structure is kind of collapsing. So that is why it's much better to do it in this position. And you see that white is basically about one move away from pushing the move E4. We got rook to G8. We got G5, and knight goes over to H5. We are hitting this bishop that is also lonely on the F4 square. Bishop drops back to H2. We do see rook going over to H8. We got F3. Desperately trying to push E4. And we do see knight to G7, which is kind of like a fianchetto of the knight, which is not where you want it. But it comes with a very real threat on your lonely bishop over here on the H2 square. So we do see bishop going to G3. We got the rook down to H5, hitting the pawn that we have somewhat overextended. And then we now have the move E4. Pawn takes e4, pawn takes e4. We do see knight to e6. We have rook over to c1, which is hitting this bishop on c2, but we have knight taking d4 just in time. And it really actually seems like black is just doing good. I mean, they're up a pawn. They have a lot of pressure on this point right here, but it's crazy because it shows that white is completely ahead about a pawn's worth. I'm like, how are you down a pawn, but you ahead by a pawn's worth? That's crazy. So if we go back in the position before, after we saw bishop escaping to g3, it was actually much better to go bishop to e7. You would see the same kind of ideas. Rook to c1, bishop would drop back to f5. We got e4, but you avoid trading on e4 and you just drop back to e6. After bishop goes to f4, I mean, I'm going to have to be honest with you, man. I mean, I kind of understand this right here where, you know, you don't trade and give white like a really great center. But, I mean, this is really computer stuff, man. Like, it's really kind of hard to look at this and be like, yeah, man, like, I can understand why black is so much better. Like, I mean, maybe you do. I don't know. But like I said, we did see this position here with rook to c1. We got knight taking d4. But it just, white is able to kind of start making some threats after we see bishop to f2. And this is actually what we're seeing in the game at this point. We got bishop to g7 trying to hold that knight, but we do see knight to e2. And you really just now have too much pressure on this knight right here. You're double attacking this knight. You're also attacking this bishop if you can remove the knight. And it is actually best to go into this position here where you got knight taking b3, rook taking c2, knight taking d2, and then king taking d2, and actually go into this position a piece down. Now, going back in the position after we saw knight going to e2, if you did think, hey, man, I'm just going to try to solve everything and just kind of take knight takes e2. Well, you would actually be looking at bishop takes e2. And, I mean, you are saving a piece, but you are going down the exchange because this bishop is now hitting here. And this rook is now hitting here, which you saw in the thumbnail. So we actually don't want to go down that path. So we arrive in this position here. And it's crazy because you are ahead a piece if you're white, but you are starting to get relentlessly attacked if you're black. So don't you hate when it's like that? Don't you hate when you have an extra piece? And it seems like you should be able to just like coast to the win, but it's like your opponent just continues to attack and you have to defend. Why am I defending if I'm up a piece? So you got knight to e5, you got knight to d4, you immediately have rook to d8, which does double. It does hit this knight right here, but most importantly, because c5 is not really a pin because rook takes c8, or rook takes c5, you are looking at this knight to f3 check right now, so you have to defend against that, so you do see king sliding over to e2. You got a rook down to h2 trying to pin the bishop that's holding the knight. So like I said, you can see that white is up an entire piece. But they're having to like relentlessly defend their position. So we have bishop going to g2. We got the move a6. And then we have the Lone Ranger pawn that's saying, I'm going to hold everything with the move b3. You know, this pawn is actually placed correctly because it is in the middle of all of these three pawns. But it is trying to do the best job possible to try to like hold this position up. It's also preventing this knight from plopping down into c4 at some point as well. We got rook down to d7. We got rook c to c1. We got king up to e7. Rook c to d1. We got king back to e8. We got bishop to g3. We got rook up to h5. We got knight to f3. Knight takes f3. King takes f3. And then we have bishop to d4, which are trying to kind of inconvenience this rook over here on g1. But it doesn't matter because you do absolutely want to trade rooks if you are Gukesh. So we do see rook going over to h1, encouraging a trade. But what is black going to do? Are they going to trade? Absolutely not. If you said no, you're absolutely correct. Black is down an entire piece. So they absolutely do not want to trade pieces and get into a worse endgame. So we got rook taking g5. We got bishop going over to h3. We got the move f5, just trying to like block everything as far as this bishop is concerned. We see bishop to f4, and then we have the only move that the rook can make, and this is a rook to h5. And it is in this position that Dominguez resigns the game. And I'm not sure that 100% of you guys can actually look at this position and say, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm white. I know I have an extra piece, but like, is it really that bad for me? Well, this is actually a point in the game that I want you to pause the video. There is a killer blow that we see in this position. If you want to pause the video and try to guess that killer blow, go ahead and do so. Okay, so it's a nice in-between move. And because this pawn right here is protected by this pawn right here, you actually have the ability to do it in this case. You actually have the move bishop takes f5. Exclam, exclam. Because you cannot take here because this rook is just going to be gone. You don't really want to take here, which, I mean, is one of the major lines that you see. So let's say like rook takes h1, you would be looking at the in-between move, bishop takes d7 with check. And then after the king takes, you are down just an entire piece. And you have managed to get at least a pawn back. And this is a 1000% win-in game. So basically all the different situations that you're going to run into, it's just pretty much going to be somewhat the same situation. So that is why you see Ding Lijin resigning the game. There is nothing more to do. So this is game number 3. Like I said, the first game went to Ding Lijin. The second game was drawn. And then this third game, Gukesh seals the deal with this one. And so it's a pretty even, you know, world championship so far. So we got to see who's going to break ahead. So I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. All of my people in the Philippines. Maraming salamat ng king makaibigan po sa nanonood ng king my video. Hello ulit. I will say sige. Ingat to you guys. I appreciate you guys very much. Anybody who is coming up from India, I will say namaskaram, and I will say vanakam. Dani Avadalu again. And Nandri. I think it's Mika Nandri, if I'm correct. And anybody who's coming from China, I will say ni hao. And we told Jian. And I'm going to see you guys next time.